Hello, everyone, and welcome to Siberian Data. My name is Edward Chenard. In this episode, we're going to be going over a little bit of a presentation, or at least part of a presentation that I gave last week at DevJam Product Conference. This was a conference held in St. Paul, Minnesota, and I was asked to speak on the team ecosystem of data products, or as I like to call it, data science as a team sport. And this conference was attended quite well. I believe there was about 400 or 500 people at this conference. For a nice sunny day in Minnesota in May, I think it was a great attendance for it. There was a 45-minute presentation that I gave, as well as taking part in a Q&A session later in the day. What I'm going to do is break down some of the concepts into a few series of videos in that presentation that I gave. And this is the first one that I'm going to give here. So some of the concepts that I talked about, and this whole presentation was about data products, particularly focused on data science teams and the building of the products, the building of the teams, and how they should be put together in a way that helps an organization get results from these teams. Because the sad fact is that most data science teams are failing. The best number I've heard, which I think is from Gartner or someone in the same type of market as them, said that 80% of data science projects fail to produce the results that was expected. And I've heard that number be as high as 95%. And since most of the people working in the data science field are six figures, you're looking at some pretty expensive failure rates there. So some of the concepts that I wanted to talk about in this episode are some of the pitfalls that companies often run into. And my presentations, I definitely like to focus on things that are much more concrete, relevant, not so much just the theory base. Although I love the theories, you need to have something that comes back to like the dollars and cents aspects of doing the work. And unfortunately, a lot of companies out there are still struggling with this aspect. And data science right now is something that is seen as an innovative space still. And within that data science, I'm throwing in the engineers that are running the distributed technologies like Hadoop and so on, as well as the data strategists that, if you have them, they should be running the strategy for the group. And if you don't have them, well, give me a call and I'll help set you up with one. But one of the concepts that often come into place when you're doing something that is innovative is something that I like to call innovation theater. There's a lot of organizations that talk innovation, and if you're a customer, sometimes you feel like you're sort of watching a movie because you don't feel that innovation happening for you. And that's because most companies that talk about innovation are truly just doing innovation theater. It's great to talk about innovation. It feels good, it sounds nice, and everybody likes to get on board with the whole innovation process. But innovation is very hard. And unless you've been fired or been threatened to get fired, odds are you aren't doing innovation. Because innovation, by its very nature, is going to piss people off. It is going to make people angry at you. It is going to make people resentful of what you're doing. Because you're coming along and rocking the boat. You're causing issues for them. They may not say that to your face, but that's oftentimes what people are thinking when they see what you're doing as a threat. And this is where I come to a question I like to always ask is, are you interested in winning or not losing? And there's a big difference between that. Because if you don't understand where someone sits on this spectrum, you're going to have failure. For example, I like to win. And I define winning as accomplishing the goal or objective that was defined. And that's how I see winning. We're accomplishing what we set out to do, and we're making things better for the organization. There are people out there that are interested in not losing. And by that I mean they have something, or they believe they have something of value. And they will see your innovation as a threat, because they are willing to sacrifice the benefits of the future for what they have in the present. That's always a losing strategy. But they have so much value on what they currently have. They just can't see that there is potential for more. And I've been in situations where, I literally had to just walk away because I understood that leadership really wasn't interested in winning. They just didn't want to lose. So they'd have these turf wars amongst themselves and become their competitors' best buddies without even knowing it. Because they spent so much time and energy internally fighting that they forgot that the real competitors were outside their four walls. And when you start getting that type of culture in place, it tends to produce a lot of negativity. I remember with one organization, they hired a guy just to go around and monitor when people came into work, went off to lunch, came back from lunch, left to go home. And if somebody left at 4:45 instead of 5 o'clock, this guy was on them the next day, like, why'd you leave 15 minutes early? It creates a negative culture, which often translates into higher turnover. And that particular team had the highest turnover rate in the entire company. Whereas if you have a high-performing team, there's often a lot of positivity that's going on. And I see this when it comes to winning teams, where people are focused on winning and not so much winning for themselves, but understanding, hey, it's a team effort. We all need to work together. So, encourage others to do good. And you'll see this when it comes to teams, where a true team, they have that positive ratio, and they have that synchronicity of working together. They understand what each person's role is and how strong they need to be at what they do. And that's really something that you see on good teams. When you see the low performing aspect of positive reinforcements, you'll often see that it doesn't really feel like a team anymore. It just feels like a group of people that just happen to work in the same place. And there's a big difference in terms of the culture and the vibe that group is going to have. And it's important to understand that as a leader, you need to cultivate something that's much more of a winning culture, particularly when it comes to data science. It is really focused on discovery. Data science is not truly an innovation arm of the company. It is truly a discovery arm. And what I mean by that is that data scientists, by their nature, should be going out and finding things, not necessarily applying their findings. That's normally left to the data strategists to do the innovation work. Now, that doesn't mean that there's a definitive cutoff. It's often something that's done together, but on its own, a data scientist often doesn't have the skill set to really do the innovation on their own. And if they're focused on winning, they're going to understand, hey, this is a team sport. We got to do this together. It's not all about me, despite what all the articles out there say about data scientists being able to save the world and all that stuff. And yeah, I'm not trying to rag on data scientists. I've been building data science teams for years now. But I'm also realistic in terms of what the average person out there can do. Is there people out there that can do all kinds of things in the realm of data science? I'm sure they can. But most of them are not the typical person you're going to find. If you can find the unicorn out there, odds are they probably have their own company, or they're making 7 figures at some Silicon Valley company right now. And they're not going to come work for you for $120,000 a year. Just being honest with you on that one. So having an understanding of winning or not losing mindset, very important for how you arrange your team, how you get your team focused, and how you get them to produce results. And if you're unfortunate with having a situation where it's primarily a not losing culture, just understand that you're going to be facing an uphill battle for most of your time there. Get your quick wins in, and then probably move on to somewhere that's a little bit more conducive. If it's a culture that's truly not losing, nature's going to take its course. Now, speaking of nature, one of the concepts that's also very closely tied to winning and not losing is the concept of open versus closed systems. Now, this is a concept that you'll see coming out in many different areas. You'll hear the concept in advertising about walled gardens. Corporations like Amazon, Facebook, Google, they have what they call a walled garden. So once you're into the system, they really want to keep you in their ecosystem and not really let you out. And those are really good from a corporate perspective, because the more data they have on you, the more they know about you, the more data products they can create geared towards you. And that's something you'll see a lot of times. But closed systems are not natural, and really they're not the best approach. If you want a really good model, it has to be an open system. Open systems are really what you see all around you in nature. I'm fortunate enough to have a wooded yard, and so when I look out there, I can see the animals come and go, plants come and go, and they'll take over certain areas and then migrate around. It's quite interesting to watch from year to year. It's an open system that thrives on its own. There's nobody there to have to dictate what's happening. The innovation and the development just happens. And that's the beauty of having an open system, is that innovation happens on its own. You don't need somebody there to run it for you. And that's why I myself am a pretty big advocate of open systems. What makes them good is that they're distributed. It's not something where you need to have all this command and control aspect of it. One of the biggest challenges for a lot of corporations is they can no longer move at the speed of bureaucracy and still remain competitive. So you have to distribute the control around the whole system. There's a strong identity. So even though it may look disorganized and kind of chaotic, there's often a sense of a strong identity. I remember years ago I created a personalization platform, and I used this open system approach to run the team. I realized if I didn't have it, I'd basically never get to go on vacation. And what happened was the team had a very strong identity and a very strong sense of team. They were able to produce things faster and better than the other teams in the organization. And as a result, the work that they did has really fundamentally changed the company and the industry as a whole that they were in. And that's what having a good open system with a strong identity helps with. The other thing is that what makes a good system is that it's resilient. Not robust, but resilient. All of us that got our MBAs or business degrees, we were taught that being robust and efficient is good for business. And it's doing that has served us really well for many decades. And it's done a great job of helping us get us where we are today. But when it comes to data products, what we really find is that you have to create something that's resilient and effective. That's what makes a good system. So again, using the model of thinking like a city model, I like to use the example of Hiroshima. Horrible experience. One of the worst things that could ever happen. Nuclear bomb dropped on it, 90% of the city destroyed at least. And yet look at it today. It's bigger and better than it was before, because cities are open systems. Yes, they have mayors, but the mayor doesn't decide, hey, apples are going to be delivered on Tuesday to all supermarkets. No, it's distributed. But they still have a strong identity. Go to New York and talk to a New Yorker. They're from New York. They have a strong identity. And again, the mayor isn't saying, hey, we're going to deliver apples to all the supermarkets on Tuesday. No, they're being able to decide that on their own. It's also, the resilient part. Things can bounce back. It can adapt. It can change. That's very important. And being effective at what they do instead of just efficient. If you look at any corporation and, the way they're operating today, most of them cannot bounce back from a 90% destruction and come back bigger and better than before. But an open system definitely can. Whereas a closed system, today I've yet to see an example of one that has been able to come back from such devastation as Hiroshima did. I mean, if you can find one, I'd definitely like to hear it. So for today, these are the concepts I wanted to talk about. I'll definitely be showing some more later on in terms of things like data science, big data, data strategy, and how do you apply them to things like personalization or developing your own team. And if you want any help, just come to the website, siberiandata.com, check out what we have. And if you need any help with your organization, reach out and contact us. Be definitely willing to help you. That's all for today. Have a good one.